Good day, guys. Welcome to episode 9 of the Intelligence Layer. Today, we are going to discuss CPFR, collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment. So, right now, your supplier is building a forecast, and you are also building a forecast. The question is, are they the same forecast? If not, that gap is where the bullwhip lives. In episode 8, we decoded the bullwhip, a 10% demand change becoming an 80% raw material swing. 40 years, every decision rational, the system is broken. Today we fix the system. What it is, how it works, why most implementations fail. So before we go forward, let us see the definition on screen, which is deceptively simple. A structured process, two trading partners, one shared forecast. That single sentence contains both the diagnosis of the bullwhip and the complete fix. Everything else in this episode is the mechanics of how you build and run that signal. So this came in 1998 by not a tech company, not a consultant, a group of practitioners formalizing what the best partnerships were already doing informally. What they agreed that year is still the global operating standard. 2004 GS1 makes it a formal global process across 150 countries. Exception management gets a definition, it stops being a handshake and becomes an auditable discipline. 2026 right now, a real time data exists, AI is deployed, shared signals are technically trivial. The one thing that has not changed in 28 years, it still requires two organizations willing to show each other their real numbers. So this CPFR was formalized in 1998, global in 2004, still requires the same thing it always required: one trust decision between two trading partners. So without the business joint business plan, you are building share numbers on top of unshared assumptions. You can agree on the output and disagree on the inputs every single month without either party knowing why. Without one shared forecast, you have two forecasts running in parallel, which is not CPFR. That is parallel guessing with a late stage reconciliation call. The bullwhip is still running. Without demand driven replenishment, the supplier is still waiting for the purchase order spike to tell them what demand looks like. They already should have known about that pretty early. So, CPFR is not a technology decision, it is a trust decision. Two parties, one signal, show each other your real numbers before the order. See, most organizations run step 1 and step 9. They sign a data sharing agreement, they generate orders from the shared system, and they declare CPFR live. The 7 steps between them treated as optional. They are not optional, they are the mechanism. Step 4 is the step nobody knows by name: exception identification. The threshold where the two parties' forecasts diverge enough to trigger a structured conversation. If that threshold is set so wide it never fires, you have shared system producing unexamined shared errors. Both parties are looking at the same wrong number and neither flags it. So you have not eliminated the bullwhip, you have agreed on the bullwhip. Steps 1 and 9, the 7 in between, that is where the bullwhip gets killed. So before CPFR goes live, both parties agree on one number, the threshold. Any SKU where the two forecasts diverge beyond that threshold triggers an exception, not a dispute. A structured 20-minute call, both parties bringing their data, both explain their assumptions, and the call closes with one agreed number and a reason code for the record. The 33% you see on the screen means the threshold fired. That call happens before production planning closes. The supplier pre-positions stock. Nobody finds out about the gap at the empty shelf. Without that threshold, Day 4 of the 14-day promotion, you are out of stock. The supplier had the raw material, the promotional calendar existed, the channel to share it did not. Without the threshold, you are going to face stock out. With the threshold, a 20-minute call and full availability. The belief in most organizations is that Bullwhip is a supplier problem. The fix, more pressure, tighter SLAs, better scorecards. That belief is structurally wrong. Look at the left panel. That is not a supplier behavior problem. The supplier is behaving exactly as the system allows them to behave. The system has no mechanism for sharing the information that would change their behavior. The fix is not pressure on the supplier. The fix is redesigning the information flow. Ask in your next supplier review, does our demand plan reach you before our purchase order does? See, you cannot guess your way out of an information architecture problem. You have to share your way out. So let us now take 3 examples of 3 industries, how Bullwhip stays there and how CPFR works and fails. So consumer electronics, the launch window is 6 weeks. The component lead time is 14. The mismatch always lands on the factory floor in week 1. Never in a planning meeting 6 weeks earlier where it could have been fixed. So the question is, does your component supplier see your launch forecast, or do they see your first purchase order directly? In automotive, a production line stoppage costs more per hour than most supply chain teams spend in a month. Both parties are building independent buffers against an uncertainty that a shared schedule would eliminate entirely. At what point does your tier 1 supplier actually see your production plan? Is the question if you are working in automotive industry. Retail grocery, a 10% over forecast is not excess inventory. If it is perishable, it is write-off. It is wasted. The demand signal your supplier plans against and the signal your store executes against must be the same signal. So 3 industries, 3 dynamics, 1 structured failure, 2 forecasts, 1 consumer, no shared signal. Okay, now let us take a live example. A real example. It was a peak season, biggest demand window of the year for this personal care brand. The retailer had the display plan confirmed 6 weeks out. The brand's supply team was forecasting from last year's sellout. Nobody shared the promotional plan upstream. Retailer ordered 2.8 times normal volume. Brand had planned for 1.6, 60% fill on day 1. Out of stock by day 5 of a 21-day peak window. The brand had raw material, finished goods were never built because the forecast never arrived. The display plan was sitting in a PowerPoint on a trade marketing manager's laptop. It never reached the supply team, it never reached the brand. The capacity existed, the raw material existed, the information did not travel. So what is the fix over here? An 18% exception threshold. The promotional calendar shared 8 weeks forward as a standing process, not a favor, a process. Next peak cycle, full availability for all 21 days. Highest sell through in 3 years. Same people, different architecture. So it was not a seasonal problem, it was not a forecasting problem. It was a communication architecture failure, and it cost 16 days of the most valuable window of the year. So the most expensive myth is the first one. Organizations treat CPFR as an IT integration project. Buy the platform, configure the data feeds, declare it live. The technology works perfectly and the CPFR still does not run. Because the business agreement, the joint business plan, the exception threshold, the commitment to show each other the real numbers was never built. IT enabled the channel. Nobody built the message. IT builds the pipe. The joint business plan provides the water. A perfect pipe with no water is just an expensive monument to a failed partnership. The myth 2, scale it to all 150 suppliers. See, CPFR collapses under that weight within 90 days. Start with 5 by revenue, go deep, then scale. Myth 3, if we agreed on the number, it must be right. No, shared forecast never challenged our exceptions and our shared delusion. I'll repeat myself, shared forecast never challenged for exceptions, our shared delusion. The myth 4, we need full trust before we start. See, trust is built through the process, not required before it. These are not technology failures, they are commitment failures. One party treating the shared forecast as optional when it is inconvenient. Now let us go through the playbook. See, partner selection, resist every instinct to go wide. One category, 5 partners, 12 weeks, depth before scale. Every organization that failed at CPFR tried to run it at scale before it was working at depth. Joint business plan, because the calendar is the forecast, share it before the order, not after the spike. Exception management, the reason code is not administrative overhead. It is your forecast improvement data for the next cycle. Every exception tells a story. Capture the reason. That's how forecasting improves over time. Performance review, the moment only one party measures it, it stops being a partnership and becomes a scorecard. So you have to measure jointly. See, the organization that have these 4 running do not have bullwhip conversations. They have performance conversations. So now let us go through the field signals. Tariff volatility, the 93% stat describes exactly the condition where 2 separate forecasts diverge fastest. Each party updating at different speeds based on different outputs. This is not a background risk. This is a live operational gap right now in this quarter. And it gets worse. 40% of supplier disruptions go undetected for more than 2 weeks. Not because the information does not exist, but because no shared exception architecture exists to surface it. A CPFR partner with a 10% threshold catches the same deviation in 72 hours. Like discussed in the previous episodes, AI planning tools are learning from your order history. If that history contains the bullwhip, amplified orders, shortage gaming, batching cycles, the model will run it and learn it and scale it. If your supplier is running AI on the same history, you now have 2 systems amplifying each other's errors. AI will scale what it learns. The action in all 3 cases is the same. Close the gap before the algorithm does it for you. Now this week, one action, go to your most strategic supplier relationship and ask one question. Does our demand plan reach you before our purchase order does? If the answer is no, you already know where to start. If the answer is yes, ask the second question. When we disagree on the forecast, do we have a threshold that triggers a call, or do we each quietly adjust our own safety stock and carry on? So 3 things from today. CPFR is not a technology decision, it is a trust decision. Share your forecast as much as you can. A shared forecast never challenged for exceptions is shared delusion. And third, start with 5 partners, not 150. One category, one quarter, the data builds a relationship. Next episode, we will talk about demand sensing, the real-time signal layer that fixes what a weekly planning cycle cannot. So like, share, subscribe, comment, and this is SCM Decoded for you, the global supply chain community. Thank you so much. See you guys again.